With the Winter Major wrapped up and behind us, we have a lot to review. From outstanding teams pressing firmly into the top rungs of the RLCS, to some teams who are going to be making some shakeups heading into the spring split, some legends hanging up the sticks. It's going to take some time to get through all of it. But before I get to any of that content, I first wanted to talk about some of the players who I most enjoyed watching and rooting for from the Major. They may not necessarily all be the best in the world, and some aren't even considered the best on their teams, but throughout the event in the days since, I haven't stopped thinking about how impressed I was by 4 players in particular. I want to start with AJG. I'll admit it, my expectations were a bit lower than most for Complexity heading into this event. Yes, they had beaten Genji previously, and Oxygen was definitely a match I could see them winning. They essentially had a freebie over Pioneers, but it just seemed like a lot of swimming upstream for them to find a lot of traction heading into the playoffs, and I was very impressed as I watched CRR and Raise Bull shoot the absolute lights out in big moments in important series, but my eyes just kept gravitating to AJG. While I wouldn't say he played well enough to be crowned champion of the team, the subtle differences he continuously made to enable Raise Bull and CRR to have the events they had just kept me glued to the screen. I mean, a big reason for this was AJG's ability to stay busy off the ball. With CRR and El Toro combining for almost 1.5 goals per game, AJG was thriving as one of the event's most physical players. Being one of only 3 players at the Major to average over 2 demos per 5 minutes, AJG blasted open pockets of space for his teammates to do their thing, affecting transition efforts by finding backside demos, getting back into rotation, or leading the attack, easily dispatching flat-footed defenders in the net. AJG was a nuisance to opposing teams. His 17 demos in the series against FaZe and his 15 demos against KRU rank first and second for the most demos in a series from the Major. One series I really want to highlight in particular was their win over KRU, and in the first 2 games of the series, we really got to see an encapsulation of how effective AJG could be. In game 1, he starts off with some incredible defensive stops. There was this 1v2 opportunity that he was able to eliminate. He called the bluff on an aerial fake, preventing 2 potential early scoring chances for KRU. And as the game went into overtime, 5 long minutes ended with AJG pressing the issue in KRU's defensive corner and laying a beautiful pass onto the hood of a streaking CRR. He finished with a goal, 2 assists, 4 saves, and 5 demolitions. And while those numbers don't always pop off the screen, AJG did exactly what Complexity needed from him this Major to make as deep of a run as they did. I made a video earlier this season about Complexity and the fact that if things didn't improve for them, AJG may find himself on the hot seat. Long term, maybe that's still the case, but at least for now, AJG has cemented himself as a productive and effective piece of Complexity's tool belt. Alright, next I want to talk about Droppz. While KRU seemed outmatched in many of their games, unable to find their flashy and uber mechanical offense as reliably as they needed, they definitely leaned on their unrelenting confidence to surprise some teams. With all 3 players shooting in the bottom 20th percentile of the event, they needed flashes on offense to keep them afloat, and Droppz supplied quite a few of those. Leading KRU with a team-high 12 goals and 64% goal participation, Droppz was critical in key wins over G1 and Team Secret. While each of his teammates also showed the ability to pop, particularly on the offensive end, Droppz felt like the most balanced and consistent with his play on both ends of the pitch. Brad showed an incredible ability to hit these flows of mechanical brilliance, and Drufino's clutch playmaking kept them in series where the mechs just kind of hit a pause, but Droppz was always lurking around with some strong challenges and shots on his Fennec. He was the only player to score for KRU against G2. He led them in shots throughout the group stage and was critical defensively in their comeback victory over Team Secret. KRU were a ton of fun to watch, and Droppz was a big reason for that. It's crazy, we've now had 2 separate 2 seeds from Sam this year impress and try to make playoff runs. While many people know South America historically for their high velocity offense and speed, the region has seemingly come a long way as Team Secret made their splash at the Fall Major with staunch goal line defense, and now KRU impressed with some defensive chops of their own against their interregional counterparts to make the quarterfinals. Of course, once there, we saw that they still have a ways to go with Complexity dispatching them quite handily, but all 3 players on this team shone in spots, and if they get some more cohesion on the offensive end and can develop some additional looks on that end of the pitch as well, I think there's a good chance we'll see Droppz and KRU back at this stage in the future. Alright, it's Dorito time. I gotta say, I was way off on Dorito earlier this season. From what I'd seen of him on Guild and poor results to begin the fall, I felt like Dorito looked uncomfortable on both ends of the field. Offensively, he'd rush himself on a shot or look too slowly for passes middle that would lead to transition attempts the other way. Defensively, he'd press too high, often leading to a full field roller the other direction, sometimes getting caught awkwardly on his own back wall, needing his teammates to bail him out with some goofy touches. And yes, some of those issues still exist. I mean, we saw him bite G1 in big ways, namely Game 4 against G2, but outside of those, Dorito impressed me in a ton of ways with his efficient offensive creation, midfield interceptions, and quick aerials, beating opponents to the ball. Dorito continues to impress as an option alongside Atomic, as the two commonly find each other in the offensive third to link up for 1-2 punches. Dorito really shines in the high air. His speed allows him to get to the ball quickly, sometimes before the opposition. This gives him space to redirect lobs down for waterfall touches or touch passes to his teammates. While the whole team, Dorito included, can sometimes get themselves going so fast that they waffle on defensive communications, letting in easy goals, when the team is feeling confident, they are rarely outpaced, and Dorito is the fulcrum for determining if G1 can keep in series offensively or not. Even though much of that means creating looks for Atomic and playing off of his brilliance, Dorito has taken massive steps forward in my eyes and impressed at his first official RLCS LAN event. And lastly, I want to talk about Itachi. I know that I've given a lot of praise to all 3 members of this roster since the beginning of the season. I mean, I felt like Karmine, since the outset, have been a team that are going to be able to contend with the best in the world. Of course, in this event, Vatira got a ton of accolades, being the offensive and overall MVP, and rightly so. He was electric in massive moments that swung the tide of critical games on their way to winning the whole thing. Exotic has been kind of this sneaky player that everybody has been talking about as being one of the best from this event, and that's true. That's kind of the reason that I want to talk about Itachi, because I feel like what he was able to do really allowed his teammates to thrive in big ways. While he doesn't have the statistical output that Exotic and Vatira have, specifically in the goal scoring category, the intangible things that Itachi is able to do off the ball and act as kind of an on-the-pitch leader in spots where he needs to is something that I think is incredible and really elevates Karmine Corp from one of the great teams to one of the best few that we have in the RLCS at this point in time. On my own podcast, the Need Boost podcast, I talked briefly about this roster and all the things that they were able to accomplish to win this event. So if you want to learn more about that, I will definitely leave a link for that below. But as it pertains specifically to Itachi, I feel like something that he doesn't get enough credit for is his ability to act as an off-the-ball player for Vatira and Exotic to set up offensive shots. And that's a lot of words that basically means his ability to always position himself in a manner that will create 50s that always win for his team. Of course, not always, but he's one of the best that we have in directing 50-50s to where he wants them to go. And something that allows him to do that even further is his ability to function on low boost. This is something that I gave him a lot of flack for with the previous Karmine roster when it was Itachi, Astral, and Nali, and I just felt like it was something that he needed to get better at, but that was just because I have done some learning since then, especially about how the European region plays. They're way more on ball than a region like North America, where you have a lot more space and time to collect boost and have these high canister plays that you can make on the net. But in Europe, it's a lot more suffocating, it's a lot more on ball, and Itachi is just that. He is a magnet to the ball. So if you are trying to transition out, he's going to be on you, and he's going to try and create a 50 that will allow Vatira and Exotic to go the other direction with numbers and momentum. He just is so good at that, and being the only player that was kept by this roster moving into this season that we have currently, and his ability to be able to kind of turn the keys to the franchise over to Vatira in such a way where it doesn't seem like he feels slighted by that or second to him. Itachi knows his role. He wants to win. He loves this team, and it showed on their way to getting this dub. So that's why I loved Itachi in this event alongside the 3 other players that we talked about. What did you guys think about these players? Please let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading what you guys have to say. And until next time, take it easy.